Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. Come here, buddy, you want to say hi before you have your milk? Apparently my buddy Jacob is going to join us right now. You want to say hi to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let's go say hi. Okay, say hi world. Hey everyone, welcome. This is episode 20.2. If you joined me earlier today, thanks for joining me. My name is Jeff, also known as the Revit Kid. This is my son Jacob. He goes to bed a little later than he used to, so therefore you may get to see him a little more often. So what I did today, if you missed the earlier... Oh, don't hit the mouse, buddy. If you missed the earlier episode, I did a double header today, so we were on at 12:30 doing a Q&A, and now here I am at 7:30 Eastern time. Oh, you want to go? Okay. You say bye, everybody?
Bye.
Good job. You love your milk? oh, you can close the door. Okay. So I took some Q&A, and thank you if you're joining me again tonight. It was actually pretty cool. I was not expecting as many questions and the flurry of questions that we got, which is really cool. If this is your first time joining me live, thank you for joining. This is a weekly live stream that I do, and sometimes it's me, sometimes I have guests, and basically what we do is we talk about Revit and BIM and adjacent software and lots of different things. Because this is an Ask Me Anything style event, you can really ask me anything, and I don't have to answer everything, but I'll answer whatever I could. So thanks again for joining. And then what I want you to do tonight is in the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat box as we go along. Make sure you ask your questions there. I'll be keeping an eye. And if I answer your question, what I want you to do is shoot me an email at jeff@therevitkid.com. And what I'll do is I'll send you a promo code to get a discount off of the BIM After Dark community. For those of you that don't know what the BIM After Dark community is, I'll show you real quickly. The BIM After Dark community is actually an online platform where I have 4 courses. And so if I go into courses, you'll see there's a course on presentation techniques for Revit, making construction documents, making families, and also Dynamo. Within each course, one of the great things about this platform is that you have the ability to work together with others. You can do your own thing. You can ask me questions. There's chat within the courses themselves. So you can ask me a question. You can actually ask members questions and questions about the content as you work through it. So extremely collaborative learning environment. On top of all of that, there's a main feed where you can ask questions to the community about Revit, etc. And the whole idea here is that you don't have to struggle with Revit alone, and you don't have to struggle with Revit and go to other places where maybe there's a lot of noise. We also have online office hours where it's just myself, kind of like this, although everyone else is also on camera, which is kind of cool, like a Zoom meeting. We ask questions and I answer questions. We also have different events and sample files from all my tutorials. So that's actually available at community.bimafterdark.com, which I'll post in the chat there. And again, if you ask a question tonight, shoot me an email and I'll give you a special promo code to become a member. Now, what's really cool is as we started this, we are at 98 members. So maybe by the end of this event, we'll have 100 members, which is really, really cool. And there's a lot of really awesome members in there. And some of you I know are here tonight, so thanks for joining. But a really cool community. It's going crazy as far as the amount of content and the great stuff that is being produced and the amount of help that everyone is giving each other. So check that out. And yeah, let's jump right into it. Anything else? Let me think. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed to my channel on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, especially if you enjoy what you're seeing tonight. My goal was originally to get 60,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I think I'm at like 33, which isn't bad considering I started the year at like 18, so let's keep going. And you'll also get notifications when I go live and all that good stuff. So, and then last but not least, if you missed any of the previous 19 episodes of this exact show, make sure you head on over to live.bimafterdark, which I'll also post in there, and that brings you to the blog where you will see all of the past 19 episodes with links and a bunch of good information, as well as this episode and the earlier one from today, part 1, which will probably be on the blog tomorrow with links, etc. So Mark P said Jacob already knows how to set view template filters. I wouldn't be surprised. He is talking up a storm. So he's a pretty bright little dude for not even being 2 years old yet. Hello from Tijuana, Mexico. Awesome. So with that being said, ask away. Ask some questions down the bottom. I'll answer them. Anything you want, I'll do my best, and we'll go from there. This morning we had some really cool questions. Some that I was surprised out of left field. Others that were pretty neat. We talked about creating rain screen walls and some dimension tips and tricks with units. I believe we also talked about columns and how they were cleaning up. There were some unique questions. So I appreciate you guys if you joined me then. And what I'll do is I'll just keep an eye on the chat, and if you have any questions, ask away. So it looks like Shamila. Welcome, Shamila. Shamila's from Connecticut. If the height of your Revit project is 800 feet, how do you get it into twin motion at the correct height? It comes into twin motion at the same height as Revit. So if you the 000 in Revit, your internal project coordinate, it comes out as that is. So I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Once you bring it in, you can move it down or move it up, but it should come in exactly the way it is in Revit. So maybe clarify that a little, Shamila, and I'll be able to answer it for you. Kyle asked, oh nice, I love these kind of questions. How do you think contractors can move from drawing-based fabrication to model-based fabrication? Well, step one is using models. And so, there are more contractors and subcontractors who are using model-based programs. And so step one is definitely using models. And then the other step is, I guess when it comes to fabrication, you're talking about a complete overhaul probably of your manufacturing process. So if you're a pipe fitter, if you're an HVAC contractor, there are some tools where you may not have to make it as dramatic of a leap from whatever it is that you're doing now, but it will require probably a little bit of an overhaul of your manufacturing process. That being said, I work with a lot of subcontractors that are fabricating directly from their models, and they're doing a hell of a job doing it. So it's possible. The technology is there as far as the tools are concerned. I think you just need to find the right tools and hardware that work with your process, your flow, and your company. What is, Yolanda? Thanks for joining, Yolanda. What is your best practice or procedures for bringing in objects from Fusion or Rhino into Revit? I haven't brought any projects from Fusion in, to be completely honest with you. Rhino, I don't know if I have very many best practices. I guess it depends on what it is that you plan on doing with the files. For the most part, they're just going to come in as masses, and then you could bring them in different ways as far as that's concerned. But I guess my follow-up to that question would be, what do you plan on doing with them? I think Rhino is .3dm. I don't even remember what the extension is, but and so depending on what your plan is and how you plan on using them may actually depend on how you bring them in. I haven't used Fusion, or I haven't brought in Fusion files, so I'm not really sure about that. But odds are they're going to come in as a mass, and depending on which file format you choose to go in and out of, then I would say it depends. You can bring them into families, you can bring them to masses, you can bring them directly into the project. If you're interested, episode, I should probably just pull it up right now. Episode, I wonder what number it was. I had Marcelo joined me. There it is. I'm not even sure I don't have the episode number on this. Well, it was from May 14th, so I'll just post it here. And he talked about Rhino inside Revit, and so it's a plugin that's being built, or an add-in, I guess you could say, where you can actually utilize Rhino geometry in Revit and vice versa. So if you're really interested in that process, I would say check out that post, which I just posted in the chat, which I will also post in the comments or description if you're looking at this in the future. So hopefully that's a little helpful. Storefront on a corner glazing with no mullion, but there is a top and bottom channel. The corner trim is giving me a hard time. All right, Marcia, let me just see if I can figure out what it is. So Marcia asked, with storefront glazing on the corner, and and she doesn't want a mullion there, but she wants a top and bottom channel. Let's see if we can do that. So that actually, I like that question because it can bring a couple other things that I can show you guys. So first, for those of you who have never dealt with corners on curtain walls, this is kind of a cool little tutorial that I can give here. So what I'll do is I'll quickly, I'm just in a default project. I'll quickly click storefront, and I'll draw a storefront. Okay, so right, this is a storefront curtain wall right here. So if I go in 3D, ta-da! Oh, I have this project with a whole bunch of levels. Somebody else asked the question earlier. Maybe I'll answer it again on here for them. But I'm also going to turn on some view stuff so it looks a little better. Okay. Okay, so here's our curtain wall. So I think what you're trying to say there is, actually first, before I jump into the butt glazing, for those of you that don't know how to put a corner mullion on a curtain wall, here's a great tip for you. So I'm just going to tab, and I'm going to select one mullion. It doesn't have to be both either wall. It's just one mullion on the corner. Okay, and then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say select mullions on the grid line. So now it's selected all the mullions on the one curtain wall on that grid line. I'm going to unpin them, so I'm going to type UP on my keyboard, and then I'm going to pull down, and you'll notice there's these things called corner mullions. And so if you don't have corner mullions, then that means that the person who made your template stripped them out, and you have to load them in, which is a little bit of a pain in the butt. But you can see the trapezoid corner mullion, there's a V corner mullion, and then there's a quad corner. There's a couple of different corner mullions. So if I just do a 5x5, you'll see I'm going to get an error in the corner, which you can't see. There it is. Corner mullion overlaps, delete elements. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to delete the other mullions and leave just a corner. So you say delete elements, and you got yourself a really nice looking corner there. So if you had a corner mullion, not the butt glazing you're talking about, that's actually how you would do it. And so what we could do is we could look at some of the other corners just so you can get a sense of what they are. So I'm going to select mullions on grid line, and then I'm going to do the V corner. So the V corner is this guy, and of course I need to select them all. Select mullions on grid line, and a trapezoid corner. Look at that thing, that's lovely. Oof. That's a heck of a detail, huh? Yuck. Okay, so now let's just say we have butt glazing as the question I believe is asking. So I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to press delete. Okay, so what you'll notice is that the mullions themselves are cleaning up pretty neat. But the problem is the glazing, you can see the glazing is not. And so usually the reason for that is, if you notice, by default, if you're using the Revit storefronts, I'm going to do SD so you can see. Notice how the glass is offset from the center. So curtain walls, and most walls, but curtain walls especially, clean up using the centers, using the grips that you pull, right? And so if your curtain glazing is offset, guess what? It's not going to clean up in the middle. So what you need to do is you need to have a type, whether it's the default type or one that you modify, and you need to turn off the offset or modify the offset. See how the offset is 1 1/4 inches? If I said 0 and click OK, now you can see I'm getting closer. It's not perfect, so if I really wanted to make it perfect, I can dimension here and say, okay, my glass is an inch thick, so maybe I want to go a 1/2 inch offset. 1/2 inch offset, and there we go. Or vice versa, maybe you want it to be overlapping, whatever, but you get the idea. So I think that probably would be pretty helpful for you. That may be what you're running into, but just a little something there. And notice how these are cleaning up fine. And so if you're using the right mullion types or your default profiles, you shouldn't have any problems with those cleaning up. Sweet. So hopefully that was, oh, I just hit subscribe again. Sorry, guys. Keep subscribing. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. Just in general. So one of the things I like, by the way, with this format is just spitting out questions. Obviously, I never know what's going to come at my way, and I'll try my best to answer them. But also, when I see questions like that, I see opportunities to demonstrate a few things on top of answering the question. So one of my favorite things to do. And anyone from the community will tell you that's basically how office hours go. They may ask a question, I go on like a 10-minute rant showing a million different great things, hopefully. Mark P said Rhino inside of Revit is really cool. Yes, it is. So check it out. Hey from Australia. Hey Shane, how's it going, man? How do you make visible nested symbols from a custom pipe accessory family? I always have the problem. For that reason, the symbol won't appear. I'm not sure. A nested symbol from a custom pipe accessory family. Jose, I have to be honest. You should probably just, if you want to send me like an example family, Jeff at therevitKid.com is my email. That's probably a better way to do it. I kind of hear what you're saying, but I don't even know how I would start recreating it to demonstrate. I guess it probably comes down to symbolic lines pulling through nested families. So maybe just shoot me an email and I'll look at that and hopefully help you, because I'm not really sure how I can recreate that to go through it. So, what is the easiest way to import FBX models into your Revit job? Importing FBX into Revit? Well, first I can tell you one thing. The best exporter for FBX from Revit, in my humble opinion, is the Twinmotion exporter. Even if you're not using it for Twinmotion, for some reason they have some really good. They have a really good way of exporting it. The other one works if you go under. Let me just screen. If you go under File, Export, you can see you could do FBX here, and the Autodesk one works. And there are some settings. If you use LOD, it kind of helps that out and stuff. But to be completely honest with you, the Twinmotion one, which you can technically install for free even if you don't have Twinmotion, it's super simple. But some quality stuff coming out of it, and the optimized model. Not for every model. I would suggest you check the geometry afterwards. But their optimized model export can greatly reduce the complexity of the geometry, and usually not lose a ton of the geometry that you need. So as far as importing, I don't even know if I've ever imported an FBX, to be honest with you. So by the way, going back to the Rhino question, if you're not using the Rhino inside, the only way to get a .3dm file in is if you go to Import CAD and you change it from DWG to .3dm. And you can see you can actually change the category and whatnot. And I do know that there are some best practices people might have for bringing it into an actual family instead. So whether it's a family object outside or whether it's an in-place mass or something like that, there are advantages to that. But yeah, I don't even know if I've ever brought in an FBX to Revit. I've got to be honest with you. So if anyone has done it before, let them know. I'm not really sure I ever ran into that. I brought a lot of files into Revit before in the past, but never really an FBX. I bought FBXs out of Revit plenty of times. I keep hitting that subscribe thing, so I'm going to go down here. Okay. So sorry Shane, I'm not really sure. I'm sure someone out there has done it or knows how to do it. I don't even see the ability to bring it in. So you may have to actually save it as a different file type. Or maybe in a different family environment or something, but yeah. FBX comes out of Revit though, that's for sure. Let's see. Deval Patel, Deval, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining. Asked ways to clean up Revit files and have one file using 63. You have one file that's using 63 gigs of RAM. I'm taking over the file and I don't know an easy way to clean the file without removing something I would not need. First of all, you mean 63 gigs of hard drive or 63 gigs of RAM? Either way, that's a ton of space for Revit file. I would say your best bet first is if it's ROM, if it's using hard drive at 63 gigs, then you need to check for some imports and some point clouds or something. I have no idea. Getting a Revit file to that size is quite a task. 63 gigs of RAM is also quite a task. So not really sure where to even begin with that. But as far as cleaning up files, you can start with purging. You can use using Dynamo to clean up imports and excess images and sheets, and I mean it depends on what you're doing with the file, but you might want to look a little more into that because that's 60. I mean even 63 gigs of RAM though. I mean, are you sure it's not hard? I mean, how big is the hard drive? How big is the actual file taken on your hard drive? Let's start there. So Deval, let me know how big it's taking, how big the file is, the actual file is. fabrication parts in the file, yeah, that'll make it bigger, but that's still absurd. That's a huge amount, depending on the file size. Let's see here. Yolanda asks, can you talk about the planting trick for scaling meshes? I can, but I don't have a mesh to show you. Let's see. So, I guess. Thanks for the question, Yolanda. And I guess the key here is you may have noticed things, specific elements, like for example, if you've seen Enscape. I guess that's what I can use. If you've seen some of the Enscape library, I actually need to upgrade Enscape. I'm still on 2.7, I think, on this machine. So if you were to place, for example, please hold while Enscape loads assets. I'd like to put an asset down, please. While that loads, I'll read what you guys are doing here. The file size is 1 gig. That's still not bad. It has a lot of fab parts and real-world parts that eat up RAM. Well, I mean, then there's nothing you're going to do about it. I mean, other than getting rid of those parts. If you know the geometry is what's doing it. 1 gig isn't that bad for Revit file size. Yeah, it's big, but you know, if you can't get rid of the geometry, and the geometry is what it is, then your only option is to look for excess things like DWGs, detail and drafting views, because believe it or not, detail and drafting views will eat your life of your computer, or eat your computer. Sheets, you know, stuff like that. You know, you can do that. But if you need to keep the geometry, all right, Enscape, come on now. If you need to keep the geometry, then there's not much you can do about it, other than, you know, looking for maybe 1 or 2 pieces of geometry that really suck. How can I apply a line weight to a textile in Revit? CAD standards approve only some type of textiles, for example, Romanesque. In AutoCAD, you can do it by layer or with a pen. Here's another CAD standard. Man, how come I keep getting so many CAD standards in Revit questions? If you attended the session this morning or earlier today, you will know I went on a little bit of a rant about this topic, and Enscape just doesn't want to load assets. Maybe because I didn't update. I don't really know. I'm sorry. Do I have assets in this one? I don't think I do. Well, long story short, there's only specific family types that you can scale, and so planting families are one of them. So if you place a mesh like a 3DM file or an SAT file or even a 3D CAD file into a planting file, you have the ability to scale the entire mesh proportionally. So sorry about that. So anyways, going back to the whole textile and Revit thing, my first, before I even answer that, is stop trying to make Revit look like AutoCAD. Revit is not AutoCAD, nor will it ever be. They're 2 different programs, and the benefit to using Revit is not trying to make drafted files look like CAD. So that's kind of the spiel. If you really want to hear what I went into over this morning, then check out the replay, which will be on the blog tomorrow. All that being said, I do know that you know, Revit uses TrueType fonts. Okay, so you get what you see. All right, you're not changing the graphics of it. It's not an SHX or whatever those things are called in CAD. Okay, so you're not changing the actual thickness of it unless you bold it or whatnot. Okay, so it's TrueType font, and so that's just what you have to deal with. So that being said, stop trying to make Revit look like AutoCAD. It's not AutoCAD. Okay, the sooner that you remove all of your AutoCAD standards and embrace the benefits of BIM, the better you'll be. Is there a way to display grids in a 3D view? Unfortunately, unless you want to use Dynamo or Navisworks, I guess, for that sense, you know, you can show levels, but you'll notice if I go into a 3D view and I go into here, if I go down to grids, they're on, but you can't see them, right? So 2 options. You have Dynamo, and you can bring in a grid family that you create. But I actually just did this in a project and it worked perfectly fine. If I have some grids in here, so if I do grid 1, uh-oh. I think I just pressed something. Excuse me while my Revit explodes. I think I just pressed F1 about 40 times, so instead of escape. Let's see. While that goes, I'm just going to start reading some questions. By the way, there's a little delay between what I'm doing and what I see with you guys. I did press F1 about 100 times. Oh my goodness. My goodness me. Okay, there we go. I'm sure we've all been there before. Speaking of AutoCAD things that don't go away, the escape button. Okay, so if I make a bunch of grids here. Okay, and then I make a few more here. Let's call these ones A. Okay, so honestly, your best bet is if I isolate these. So here's my grids. Export to AutoCAD. Bring them in. Speaking of AutoCAD. You don't have to ever open it in AutoCAD unless you want to do something with it. But if I go here, I export to AutoCAD. I call this one grids. And then if you go in your 3D file or your 3D view and you import from AutoCAD, so insert, import CAD. I know this isn't the greatest answer because you won't if they change them, you have to change them yourself, but it works. The other thing I should have mentioned is if you actually want to see the grid numbers, you do have to go in AutoCAD and explode them, or you have to export to old AutoCAD. So otherwise, you need to use Dynamo and use refresh, which means that no matter what, you're refreshing something anyway. So it doesn't really make a huge difference. Make a grid view, export it, import it in, call it a day. If anyone has any other ideas of how they'd like to approach that, then feel free to chat and let me know. Remember, if I answered your question, shoot me an email if you're interested in joining the BIM After Dark community, and I'll shoot you a discount code. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with all this. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Let's see. What's the best way to import? Ryan asks, what's the best way to import a topo map of an actual location? If you want to check out, I mean, if you have a CAD file, it's one thing, but it sounds like you're saying without a CAD file. And so I have a tutorial from many years ago of the easiest way to make topo from an image. And so I'll post that here, and you guys can check that out. I just posted it in the chat, so check that one out. And it's actually one of the most viewed videos on YouTube for me, which is kind of cool. It's been there for a while. What are the best methods to model light gauge framing? Ooh, that's a pretty good question. All right, let's do this. So light gauge framing, I guess it can be very similar to wood stud or wood framing, which is something that after my last session, where's screen camera? After my last little tutorial, if you didn't see it, check it out. I think I posted it on Monday, where I was showing how to put X's in stud walls. I got a few questions about the framing of this project, and so I did have it open just in case. I was also chatting with Tom, who's a member on our site. Where am I going? 3D views. And so, this isn't cold form, but not too different from cold form. Imagine these are actually just this C channels, and so you can see what I have here is actually. Let me turn off walls, and you can really see it, and roofs. Okay. So you can see I have cold form or stud framing here, and so I mean the way that this is done is mostly beam systems. There are some little techniques that you could do, like I should probably save as this so I don't overwrite my actual project. Let me just, sorry about that. Okay. So beam systems are probably the easiest way, but they are a little bit of a pain in the butt to update. in time. I mean, you could host them and make them parametric. But then the things like headers and little sills and stuff like that, those kind of things are kind of manually drawn in. But I can just quickly show you kind of how you can approach that on this file here. So if I was to, I would hope you guys know. If not, check it out. Just Google it. It's pretty easy. But beam systems themselves are pretty straightforward, right? So if I go into this file here, just as a default, and because you said cold form, I'll just load in, make sure there's some cold form framing loaded in here. So structural framing, light gauge steel, and we'll do some furring hat channels. No, we'll do some light gauge joists, and we will do some 4-inch joists. Sure. 4, 5s, whatever. 6, sure. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so framing itself, if you go under the structural tab and you go to beam systems, it's really cool. You basically just set up a floor profile, or you can host it on multiple things, which is what I'm going to show you. And then you just set the spacing. So, if I wanted to, I just did beam system, and you can see I'm drawing my floor here. And then I just set a direction. So if I click beam direction, I can change the direction of the beams, either direction, right? And then here I can set my spacing. So right now it's set to 6 feet. If I want it to be 24 inches, I can. And then you can also set your beam type. So light gauge for whatever. So if I want it to be a 400S, click apply and click finish. And just like that, you can see I have a system, okay? Now what's cool about these systems is they are semi-parametric. So if I shouldn't say they are parametric. So if I edit it just like a floor, it's good. You can also obviously lock these to floors, so they are parametric. But also if you wanted to put a opening in this floor, for example, I can just do this, right? And there it is. Okay. But then when it comes to the individual beams, so for example, there's an opening there, I'd probably need some sort of a header. You have a couple options. If they're in the same direction as the actual framing, a lot of times because it's already hosted, I'll take one of these frames and I'll just copy them, and then you can do whatever you want with it. You can change the edges, you can change the sizes, so on. But if it's not in the direction, then you can just draw beams, structural beams, same size, right? And you can just draw them across here like this, and then draw them across here like this. Right, and you can move around, do whatever you want. Okay, so that's a quick way to sort of do that. But now let's just say we want it to be on a roof, for example, which a lot of light gauge framing usually would be a roof. So what you're going to need is you're actually most likely going to need your roof there first. So what I'm going to do is draw a quick roof. And I know I'm doing all this in one file, so it's kind of goofy, but I think you guys get the point. Plus I'm trying to get through it all so I get a bunch of your questions. And I apologize if I don't get to everyone's questions tonight, but like I said from earlier today, I couldn't believe how fast and furious the questions came in. It was pretty awesome. Okay, so what I did here is I just made a quick gabled roof, right? So what I need to do is create a new beam system. So if I go into structure, beam system, or I just click the beam system and type CS, which is create similar, what I can do there is I can click set for my work plane, which you can also do under architecture or under modify. If you click set, you can actually pick a work plane. So right by default, we were drawing on level 1, but we want to set it on a work plane, which is going to be our roof. So if I click pick plane and I select the top or the bottom of my roof, depending on what it is, I'm going to click the bottom. Now I'm drawing on that roof slope. So all I have to do is click pick lines. I just tab to pick my lines. I'm going to keep this at 2 feet, finish, finish, finish. And now, if I hide this, you'll notice I have roof framing in that direction. And because it's hosted, notice this, if I change the roof pitch, it changes with the pitch, but I didn't lock the actual sketch, so it doesn't change the height or the length. So that's what I mean by it's semi-parametric. You unless you plan for, I just hit F1 again, man. I haven't hit F1 like that in a long time. There's some, it's great, but you have to be ready to play with how these things react to the building changing, right? And then finally walls. So what I did for those stud walls is, if I hit a stud wall here, do the same thing. You do a beam system, you click set, you pick a plane. I'm just going to pick the face of this wall for now. Click finish. Oops, I need to actually draw a beam. Let's draw some beam systems. I'm just tabbing around and selecting. I'm going to do my beam direction like this, and I'm going to click finish. And now you can see I actually have my studs inside the wall there. So there's the studs there. If I hide them, you can see there's the studs there, which is pretty cool. And then I'll show you just quickly how I would make. I just hit that, didn't I? Yeah. If I was to now put a window in this wall. There we go. Let's put a window in the wall. Let's probably make it a little bigger so that we can do something with it. Let's make it a 5-foot window. Okay. So now that I have a window in here, what I can do is I can modify this beam system a little bit, right? So, for example, if I go over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my walls under visibility graphics. I'm going to make them a little transparent. I'm going to go with like 50% transparency so I can see my beam system. Ta-da! I'm going to look straight at it. Of course, I didn't draw it straight, so that doesn't work. I probably should have drew it straight. Sorry about that. Let's take all of this and let's rotate it, show it straight. Because that's just going to, I don't know if you guys know this, but drawing anything on an angle in Revit sucks. Okay, so now I'm looking at it straight. And so now you can start modifying this thing however you need. So like, for example, if I'm just copying these beam systems, because remember, they're hosted already, they're in the right plane, and I'm starting to make my king posts. You could copy and rotate these as well if you want. So for example, if I copy this guy and I rotate it 90 degrees, you can see it rotated, but unfortunately it also rotated in the x-axis, which isn't necessarily the worst thing based on this framing. And then you can start filling in the gaps. But again, the problem here is that it's a pain in the butt to update. And so if it comes to updating, is extremely important. I can also unpin these. Unpin. I can split them. And then I can SL on the keyboard is split, by the way. And then I can just do that and quickly frame out this opening. But as you can see, now that I have this opening framed, unless I spend the time to lock this stuff to the opening, when I do this, guess what? The framing stays. So be wary, unless you use a plugin like a Strucsoft MWF framing or a few other framing plugins that are out there, or you take a little bit of a different approach, then you are going to have to modify things like that. Obviously, I could have just made openings in the beam system to not do the split, but yeah. That was kind of something that I wanted to go on a little bit of a rant of, because I know a lot of people ask me questions about it. So thanks for asking. Appreciate it. Whoa. Sorry, I missed a whole bunch of chat there, you guys. Let me catch up. All right. Smart method for showing. Jeff asked if there's a smart method for showing accumulative occupant loads throughout the means of egress path. No idea. I believe there's ways. I honestly haven't played with the egress path as much as I should have yet. So I can't really say too much about it. I've used it just to mess around with it, but I haven't done any construction document drawing of commercial buildings lately that I had to do that. Residential buildings, you don't have to do egress path. So I unfortunately haven't used it enough. So if someone else knows how to show accumulative occupant loads, the one thing I did just help a recent member out about is they didn't have the occupant load path or the egress path tag in their library for some reason. So whatever, that shows the length and stuff like that. Let's see. Gary said the first place he looks for large geometry is generic models. Good point, Gary. Back for the question, who had a gigantic file? Look at generic models, but there's a lot of things you can look at. You never know. How can I sync room data from a linked model? Alan, thanks for the question. Into room parameters of the live model and to continue monitor them. The only way that you can really do that is there's two ways. You can do that through Dynamo, or you can do that through scheduling with a link. So what I'll do here, screen and camera. I can't believe it's 8:13 already. My goodness, guys. I can't believe, I mean, I'm surprised at I mean, thankfully, I appreciate it, guys. The great questions, and hopefully you guys are finding value in some of the stuff I'm showing within the questions, because that's usually why I like this format for anything really. Is I may go on rants, but I hope that within all of the rants, there's just little snippets of value that you guys find from them. Okay, what was I talking about? Links. Okay, so if I bring in a linked file, so if I link Revit and I grab this file here. Okay, so I bring in that residential house file that I was showing you before. So you can see this is now in the project, and there are rooms in this file. So if I go in here, you'll see if I go to tag rooms, well, if I click here, you can see there are rooms in this file, 102, kitchen, etc. And so the way that you can monitor those is you can just make a schedule. So I'm just going to new schedules and quantities, and I can make a room schedule. And I'll do name, number, and I don't know, area. The key here is just selecting include linked elements in links. See right here? Include elements in links. Hopefully you guys can see that. So now if I do that, you'll notice I'm actually getting the rooms from my linked file. So there's one way to monitor them. If you want those parameters and that information to exist in your live model, then you're going to have to use something like Dynamo to do it. So cool question. Thanks, man. I think that was, yeah, let's see. That was Alan. Thank you, Alan. Jeff. So Jeff, I think, was following up on one of those there that was creating. Yeah. Hello from Ventura, California. What's up, Steve? How you doing, man? Steve asked, how would you add plants to a wood trellis? Enscape had some vines to put on the walls, but it did not work to put them on a trellis. Not really sure. I mean, if they have vines, and unfortunately I would show you, but for some reason, maybe it's because I haven't upgraded to 2.8 yet, but for some reason my Enscape asset library isn't loading right now. But I mean, the assets usually in Enscape are just work plane based, so you should be able to just move it and adjust it onto whatever trellis you're talking about. Sorry if I don't really know what the real question is there, but okay. Sorry, I was just in the background there cleaning up some of the Revit files that I had open. Any tricks for copying view links from a master file to a working project? View links. Any tricks? I'm not sure what you mean by view links. Are you talking about view templates and view settings? Chow, can you, or Chow, I hope I pronounced it right. Please try and verify that a little bit. I'm not really sure what you mean by view links. Marcia said, I'm going to be working with a CAD user soon, and I'm preparing to tell them in CAD. Probably the hardest people to teach Revit to, and if you're a CAD user out there, it doesn't mean you can't. I was a CAD user as well, but CAD users are very hard people to teach Revit to because it's not CAD. And so, it's just one of those things. You can replace Arial text to Roman.shx when you export to CAD. So I guess going back to the original question about text, Scoured was saying you can export and bring in the Roman.shx, but again, just stop it, guys. Revit's not CAD. Don't pretend it's CAD. It's BIM, okay? It's a different piece of software. Throw your damn CAD standards out the freaking window. No one cares about them. They just want good models. Is there a best practice to create a Butler building wall? They are built with metal rib sheets like the steel deck and metal decks. Not really. So you can look at sort of if you look at my board and batten thing from Monday, my tutorial from Monday. That's one way to approach it, but it's really hard things like that are really hard to figure out. You could create a repetitive family or build it into, like, if you created, for example, a beam that was shaped as one of those panels and ribs. Like I guess, you know what, let's just for fun, if I loaded in a hat channel, I know it's not the exact same thing, but if I loaded in a hat channel, and let's say I use a 1.5 inch hat channel, and then I create a beam system like this one, and then instead of 2 feet, I did 1.5 inches, or actually maybe it might want to be 3 inches. Let's see, we'll find out. Yeah, we'll probably want this to be 3 inches. But I could tell you that this is going to bog your model down pretty hard. I mean, modeling anything like that is going to... And then instead of using these, I use a hat channel. So imagine that the hat channel is your ribs, which you would make a family for. You could do something like that. So it's hard to see there. Oh, it looks like we still got the spacing off a little bit. You know, this is the way you can create things like sheeting, for example. So 3 inches, let's do 3.25. I guess the 1.5 was in this direction, right? So I was doing the wrong thing. The length of it. Close, come on, we're getting there. We're getting there. Oh, look at that, huh? Check that out. So the reality is, right, if you really wanted to, you know, you make a family that's kind of like this hat channel, and then you could use a beam system. You could use maybe a mullion that's that shape and use it, but you're going to have to use something that creates repetitive elements in 3D. I just did all of that without showing you guys, didn't I? Crap. Look how cool that looked too. All right, let me do it again. I'm so sorry. I get so carried away and I forget to check that I'm showing you what I'm doing. And then it's all delayed so I don't get to see it. So what I did here is I took the beam system. I carried it over here. So I just copied, pull this over here. So I just copied this beam system from the wall. I loaded in a hat channel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the distance of this to 3.5 inches. Granted, if you were using a Butler building, it may be like 18 inches, and that's what the channel looks like. And then I'm going to flip this thing to a hat channel, click apply. And now if I zoom in, you can see what this looks like. If Revit doesn't explode. Revit is not behaving tonight. That was a cool question, actually. I've done a few Butler buildings, but never had to. I've modeled trusses and stuff for them, but never tried modeling the exterior wall beyond just putting line work on it. All right, well, Revit might blow up, but hopefully you got to see it before Revit blows up. All right, let me check some text while that's going. Sorry that I was talking again without showing the screen. It happens all the time. That was Jose asked that question. Thanks for the question, Jose. That's a great question. People are complaining about talking about fonts. I definitely don't want to. Weird. Okay, looks like we're back. So hopefully you guys can see this, and you can see what this is just a beam system with repetitive elements. So ideally this hat channel would essentially be your Butler building wall that you're talking about, and you can use that. For this case, you may want to use something like a curtain wall, just because it acts more like a wall and you can stretch and pull it without modifying it. And then you can use the mullions as your quote-unquote Butler stuff. So hopefully that's helpful there. Cool question, man. Appreciate it. All right, let's go back to camera. I can't forget to go back to screen when I show you guys stuff. Let's see. Is there a way to get scaled views from Enscape? Shane. Scaled views, I'm not really. I mean, you could put something in the view that's scaled, but you know, Enscape views are perspectives, and they do have an orthogonal thing, but you can't put a scale on it. I mean, you could. I would say if you really wanted to scale an Enscape view, just put something in the scene that you know the size of, whether it's a square or a cube or maybe a piece of furniture, and then just use that, and you know what the size is. The reality is you can't really scale perspective, right? But you can scale the orthogonal views, which they do have now. So let's see. Brody. There's quite a conversation going on about fonts, so I love that. I geek out on fonts too, but separate file for grids and levels, and then simply link in the file to the rest. Yeah, so depending on your project, actually that's a good point, Brody. Thanks for saying that. There are a lot of people who do create a grids and level file, and that works for them. I mean, and then links it into all your stuff. But any workaround for viewing railings and RCP views? Buck Davis, thanks for joining. David is asking, I'm not really sure what you mean, because I thought, let's see. Let me show screen here. Okay, so if I was to put a railing, you may be meaning a railing on the stairs, so we'll just start with a railing here. So here's my railing, which if I go in 3D, there's my railing. So now here's the thing, if you were to go to the RCP of this, you're not going to see it because your cut plane is at 7'6". Well, guess what? Your railing is only 3'6" tall. So if you wanted to cut your thing, your building lower, it still isn't showing the railing. I've never even noticed that before. Okay, maybe you can't see them. Has anyone thought of a way to see railings in RCPs? Actually, that's kind of the way I was going to think. Is a lot of times with RCPs, what I do is actually I probably didn't go low enough depending on this railing. Sorry, I should have checked that. So your cut plane is at 7'6", so you can play with that. A lot of times with reflective ceiling plans, I'll actually play with some of the new underlay tools because they are really powerful. And so you could look up or down at different levels and stuff, and so it makes it really powerful. So you see what I just did there is I just said my range based underlay is going to be level 1 looking up at level 2. So then you're kind of doing this goofy like half-tone thing and showing stuff, but it just gives you another option for tweaking with reflected ceiling plans. So I don't know if that fully answered your question, but just a tip from me is that's one of the ways that I've messed with some of that. Hello from Brazil, what's up? LJ Lancaster said, still love the look of that model. Is it shaded view with override graphics to play with transparency? Yes, so that's actually what's called my 70-50-20 rule. And I will post a link to, I get into all of the little view settings in an episode. Here we go. In an episode a couple weeks ago. I just posted the link in the chat, and that's actually my 70-50-20 rule, which is basically a couple of graphic settings and shaded. And I did have transparency on the walls for that framing view that you guys were looking at. Hello from Russia. Hey. Looks like the chat's slowing down, so I'm catching up finally. Woohoo! Tried a few Dynamo scripts for syncing linked model data, and it doesn't quite work. Would love to see your thoughts for just doing it with the room name and number. So Alan's still asking about the linked stuff. I mean, I think you saw what I was doing with the room, or the rooms using linked. And I do have some scripts that pull data from linked files. You will usually have to use a I think there's some custom packages that let you select linked elements, but it shouldn't be a problem. So I'm not, Alan, if you want to shoot me an email with some more specific questions on the Dynamo side of things, and we can dig through it. It's kind of hard to approach what your exact problem solution is, but I'll just let you know that I have successfully done things through linked files with Dynamo. So hopefully that's helpful. I use Piers. So Mans Iglesia, Mans, nice to meet you, Mans. Hopefully I'm not butchering your name too much. Said that you use wall reveals to mimic stucco breaks, but the problem is the reveals appear as cut lines and are very wide. I'm assuming you're talking about in elevation views, where is when they're looking pretty crummy. So let's just see if we can recreate this for you. Okay, so if I was to draw a generic 8-inch wall here, and I don't even know where I am in this wall. There it is. And then I was to do a wall reveal, and I, let's say, did vertical, for example. And then maybe I just copy this a few spaces. Doot, 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 doot. Okay. So you can see there's my reveals. If I go in 3D, this file is getting a little much here. All right, I have to turn my wall transparency off. Clear overrides. Okay. Apply. Okay. All right, so you can see there's my reveals. I guess these are a little bigger than probably the ones that you'll be making. So if you want, I will make them a little thinner. So I'm just going to go down to families, profiles, rectangular. Where am I? Reveal brick course. Yeah, let's just use this one for now. So I'm going to take the one brick one and I'm going to duplicate it and call it small reveal. And inset into wall is going to be, I don't know, 1/2 inch. And then the brick, let's just do 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, or whatever. And then I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to flip these to the brick, the one that I just made, which is called small. Okay. So now, unfortunately, right, these are edges now of walls. So here you can see they're looking a little thick. And then if I go to my floor plan, where am I? You can see there they're looking a little thick. And unfortunately, there's not really much more that you can do about that, mainly because they're just cut in the walls, right? So I guess in theory, if you tried tweaking some line weights, you can mess with it. But the reality is there's not really much more you can do with that because it is what it is. You're cutting the wall and you're seeing them. If you wanted to, in your elevation view, for example, let me go back to elevation view. You could see there, you could use the line weight tool, so LW on your keyboard, and then you could use thin lines, and you could select, and use thin lines on these is one way. I don't think hiding the reveal will do anything, but you can see line weights kind of does it there. Otherwise, there's not really much more you can do. The opposite is you could make your line weights of your walls in that view thin, and then click the edges and make them thick. If that makes sense. So hopefully that was a little helpful. That's kind of a tough one. But you can see even here, even at 1/8 inch, if I go to 1/4 inch, oops, not 1/8. You can see the difference between this one and this one using the line weight tool. Unfortunately, the only way to do that is to manually click the edges, which is a little bit of a pain in the butt. How do you export schedules to Excel? Oh, super simple. So actually, if you're interested too, 2 weeks ago, or maybe more, I did a live show, and it was about Power BI. And granted, yes, it was about Power BI, but I did talk about exporting from Revit quite a bit, so I just posted that in the chat. But I'll show you really quickly. So if you remember, I made this schedule here, room schedule. Oh, I forgot to put the link back in there. Darn. All right, let's make a new schedule. Let's make a wall schedule or something. So if I go to schedules and I go to walls, I'll just make a wall schedule, put a bunch of information. Fine. Okay, so there's my walls. Super simple. All you do is you go to File, Export, Reports, and Schedule. You could make a keyboard shortcut for this. That's what I found out during the Power BI thing. I didn't even think about it. And so you can see mine is SCX because it is quite a few clicks. But if you go to Reports and Schedule, what it does is it's going to make what's called a TXT file, which is a CSV file. I know it's confusing, but so you're just going to export this to a location and leave everything as is and click OK. So now it creates a text file, and then all you do is in Excel, if Excel wants to open, it's opening on the other screen. Hold on a second, guys. Oh, it's 8:30 already. Man, time flies when you're answering questions. This is pretty cool. I think I actually am getting to the end of the list of questions, which is pretty awesome. So if I create a blank workbook in Excel, I go to Data, From Text, and I click that file, which is called wall schedule, and click import, all I gotta do is click finish and okay, and there it is. If you wanted to, you can look into Dynamo or PyRevit, or there are some add-ins that let you automatically go directly into Excel. But that's pretty much it. You export to a TXT, and then you import the data into Excel, and you got yourself a Dynamo or a Revit file in Excel. Line type tool. Yeah, so David said he's using the line type tool. Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I don't, because you're using reveals, you're kind of stuck with the wall category, and you know, there's not too much that you can do beyond the actual what's it called, line type, line work. Sorry, I don't know, some kind of bang outside. I'm hoping that I don't lose my power again. For those of you that were looking out for the show last week, I apologize for postponing it, but I was out of power and internet for 7 days and internet for 9 days, and so it wasn't fun, I could tell you that. All right, we got a couple more questions, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Let's see. Let's see. To make them thin lines, I'd use group and filter it. I don't know about that. I'm very anti-groups, so. And for anyone who's used groups, you probably know why. What would be a quick way to show a curbless shower in Revit? Essentially show sloped pan drain in wood frame, blah, 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 blah. So, that's a good question. So a sloped drain or something in the middle of a floor. I don't know if this is the exact example that you're trying to ask me about, but I'll make a floor real quick. So here's my floor. All right. So now what you can do is, I would actually suggest you make a floor within the floor to make your life a lot easier, but you can do it within the grandeur floor. So let's do it two ways. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make an opening here. Yeah. And then I'm going to create a floor, or not, floor. That's really weird. Don't be stupid. My work plane was set to, I think, that roof or something like that. So whatever. So I'm going to make a floor within a floor. Okay. And then with this, you can simply modify the sub elements and do something like placing a point in the middle. Let's say it was in the middle. I don't know if it's in the middle, but I'm just saying that. And then you can say -4 inches. And then you got yourself a sloped floor. Or if you didn't want to do a floor within a floor, you can do modify sub elements, and it's going to require a few sketches. So for example, if I added a split line here and a split line here, because I think split lines have to go all the way through, so that's kind of why I'm doing that. Actually, it'll be cleaner that way. And so then a split line here, and then I can put a point in the middle, and then I can grab this and say -4 inches, and there you go there. So different ways to approach the same thing, but I would probably stray on the side of this one, because then you're not messing with the original geometry, which can be super detrimental to your stuff. So and then what that was is I selected the floor and I went to modify sub elements. If you guys are not familiar with that, floors you can do some really cool crazy shit with. All right. Beth Ann, hey Beth, nice to see you again. What are the best recommendations for add-ons and supplemental programs to produce renderings for a firm just getting started in producing renderings? I have an entire series and course about that. I also have a bunch of episodes about that. But I would say Enscape, Twinmotion, or Lumion. And I do have, if you go to the RevitKid.com and check out all of my videos. I even did there's episodes of this exact live show where I kind of run through them all. I have reviews on all of them based on what I think they're all great, and I don't, depending on your circumstances, they may be different, but just look, those three are probably where you're going to want to go. And I even have, I think, an episode where I run through all three of them and kind of compare them. So depending on what it is that you want to do and your end goal as well as your budget, those are the three that I would look into. So that's Enscape, Lumion, and Twinmotion. Great question. All right, a few more questions, guys, and then we're going to wrap it up. It's already 8:37. Crazy. Do you think it's a good idea to use Enscape instead of V-Ray? Personally, I've been enjoying Enscape much more, but do you think it competes? Yeah. yes. And Lumion too, and Twinmotion and whatever. I'm not going to knock V-Ray. V-Ray looks beautiful. It's always looked beautiful. That's what it's for. But the amount of work and time and effort it takes, depending on what it is that you do, I don't know if it's worth it. And so I don't think it's worth it for me personally. So that's why I like to use those other softwares. There's limitations to all of them, but the end products, and not to mention the end products, even from what you're seeing with V-Ray for what people do, there is so much more post-processing to those anyways that a raw rendering looks very similar. Yeah, some reflections and lighting depending on how close you want to get to it, but I have only used Enscape, Lumion, or Twinmotion for renderings specifically for the last, it's got to be 6 to 8 years, maybe 7 years. Those are the only 3 programs I ever used for renderings. I haven't touched V-Ray in a while, and I haven't touched the raw Revit renderer. And I've been making a lot of various different presentation renderings. So nothing against V-Ray. It's beautiful. It works great. I honestly only used the first version of V-Ray for Revit, and I haven't seen it in years, so I don't know how much they progressed. I'm sure they have. But the downfall, kind of similar to Enscape, and if you read my reviews, you will see, is the amount of library and content that you get. Do parts have the same line weights issue? I think you have a little bit better of a control over parts because you can select them individually and manage them a little differently. But you will run into some possible line weight issues if you start slicing and dicing parts as well. The difference there, I think, is that you can control parts separate from walls, and so maybe you have some control over that situation. So that's a great point there. Who else said that? Beth. So I use parts all the time, but you're right. Parts could be an option for you, for whoever that was that asked about the stucco. I'm sorry, I forgot who that was. Maybe Steve. But let's see. Alan just mentioned, I should have said that too. When it comes to the reports, if you change the extension from .txt to .csv, you don't need to do the data import thing. It'll open directly in Revit. So good point there, Alan. All right, here we go. Any other questions? So let's. It's 8:40 now, so I'm going to wrap it up. Whatever's there is what I'm going to answer. From that on, I'm going to we're going to stop taking the questions for now. If I answered any of your questions tonight, shoot me an email at jeff@therevitKit.com. Say that I answered your question, and I'll shoot you a link for discounted membership into the Revit Kit or the BIM After Dark community. And again, make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this. I'll be back next week on Thursday with a special guest. And let's see, Alex, one last question. Alex asked, how would you recommend modeling 4x8 sheets of dense glass to be used in Twinmotion? I would like to show the exterior sheeting going up the building as part of the construction phase. I would definitely just use textures if you can get away with it. There's really no reason to model individual 4x8s. I have a really nice dense glass material I use, and it looks great. So there's no reason to model 4x8 pieces of individual elements when you can just model a wall and make it 4x8 texture. So if you want that, shoot me an email and I'll send you that. If not, I'm sure you can make it or find one. It's really, really simple to make. All right. Sweet. That's it. I think that's it. Woo. I think I got everyone's questions. If I skipped your question, I'm sorry, but that was a lot. So you guys are awesome. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone is safe and healthy and happy in these weird times that we live in. And thank you for joining. Check me out. Actually, one more reference before I forget is if you're interested in, I have a bunch of free content, a bunch of cheat sheets and stuff like that. Let me paste those in here for you guys. It can be found at free.bimafterdark.com. I have a bunch of cool stuff. There's a bunch of ebooks, but there's also a free Twinmotion from Revit Twinmotion course. So make sure you check that out. That's free.bimafterdark.com. Thank you guys for joining me. This was awesome. I'll see you all next week, and hopefully I'll see you on the inside at the community too. So thank you so much. You can reach me at the Revit Kid on Twitter, and I want to bid you all adieu. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to everyone next week. Cheers.